What's up, everybody? I wanted to do another one of my 10 great videos, and this one's just going to be about podcasts. I mostly listen to podcasts when I'm not listening to music, so I wanted to go over 10 really great ones. I'm going to skip over any Joe Rogan Experience or Mark Maron type podcasts because those are obviously great ones. But these 10 you might not know about, so let's start it up. Legion of Skanks out of New York. I think that's the one I'm most interested in right now, just because it's the most chaotic and it's just awesome. I would highly recommend starting with the presidential election race that they did a couple months back. That whole thing's been hilarious. Big J. Okerson's great. Louis J. Gomez took a while to get used to, but that's kind of what I hear from other people. And Dave Smith's great. In fact, number 2 on my list is Dave Smith's podcast, Part of the Problem. I wouldn't consider myself a Republican or a Democrat, but I like listening to certain political podcasts that just question policies and principles, and Dave Smith is a libertarian who is pretty unhappy with the Libertarian Party. So I find it really interesting, his viewpoints on the presidential race, kind of current events, all those things. In the same vein of political podcasts, Jimmy Dore is a great kind of left-leaning comedian who has a podcast from his garage in Pasadena. He is as fairly critical of the right as he is of the left, and he'll appear on Tucker Carlson. He'll really push back on what he thinks is right, and he does it in a really interesting way. It's not really a political podcast, but I would say number 4 on my list is Kurt Metzger's Can't Get Right. He is an ex-Jehovah's Witness. He's a comedian. Wrote for Amy Schumer, Ali G, Sacha Baron Cohen. Really, really smart guy. Some great podcasts, and he just seems to be very good at deciphering bullshit and kind of cult behavior. I would definitely start with his Tim Dillon episode is great. Which brings me to my next podcast. It's just called The Tim Dillon Show. I would start with the episode called The Gates of Hell. It was a Patreon episode that he put out that was just a great rant that he ended up putting out on YouTube, etc. I would describe Tim Dillon as Jonah Hill's character from Wolf of Wall Street 10 years after that movie. And he's bombed out of his life, and he's trying to tell jokes. It's fucking hysterical. He just did a great Rogan appearance with Alex Jones. Getting away from anything political or that kind of stuff. Another podcast on the Gas Digital Network is one called Are You Garbage? Really good. I would start with Greg Fitzsimmons' episode or Tony Hinchcliffe's episode. They basically just run through a series of questions to try to figure out how garbage are you, and it's a great New York podcast. Another great New York one is Sixth and Jump with Ari Shaffir, Dan Soder, and Big J. Okerson. It's probably the stupidest podcast I listen to right now because they go episode by episode through 21 Jump Street episodes, but it's really funny. Definitely check it out. Another great one is The Honeydew by Ryan Sickler. He used to put out a podcast with Jay Larson called Crab Feast, and this is, I think, even better than that because it just basically focuses in on stories of like failure and the things that make interesting people, and he's had all the best comedians on there. He has a multi-episodic series with Joey Diaz going through his whole life, and that's probably a great place to start because there's so many of them. Really goofy podcast is Tuesdays with Stories. Mark Norman and Joe List. Really good, simple stories where they just tag, and it's very fast. It's about an hour, and their Patreon is awesome too. If you go to their Patreon, watch the Stranger by the Lake episode. It's fantastic. Last but not least, I couldn't not mention The Dollop, which is a kind of a history podcast that Dave Anthony hosts. Gareth Reynolds kind of comments on stories that he's never heard before, and honestly, Gareth Reynolds is one of the fastest people, and I would start with either his George H.W. Bush episode or any episode with Gareth Reynolds' mom. because she's just as funny as he is, and it's a pretty funny three-way dynamic. If you have any other podcasts that you think I've forgotten, please let me know in the comments below. Maybe I'll do a second round of these, and I don't know, more later.